Hello, everyone, and happy Saturday. I'm RJ Kerr, and welcome back to our continuing live stream series, Let's Write an Adventure, where we write a D&D adventure in real time. We just kind of follow along, and you guys follow my process and toss out questions and comments as we go. Um, if you're new to this series, go back and watch from the beginning. Everything will make a lot more sense if you do. But if you don't, um, we're working on an adventure that we brainstormed in session one, where we got a group of four third level characters that are hired by a community leader of some kind to recover the only known deposit of a powerful phase slaying material called cold iron, and which has been lost in a glacial mine that was at one point ravaged by disease. The community needs to save themselves from the foretold coming of the Bloodgood Sisters Hag Coven, and the character's been led to believe the village plans to fight these powerful and evil fae when they recover the cold iron. But when they go to turn it over, they find out that the village actually intends to use the cold iron to pay off the coven, thus completing an ancient pact. And the party must decide whether to support empowering the coven with this powerful fae slaying cold iron, or convince the community to fight back, knowing there's going to be consequences to the village no matter what they do. And so last time we were digging into uh, the the actual community itself. We'd taken kind of a step back from work on the glacial mine, um, and gone to dig into the community that at that point did not have a name, and now we have named Sky Song Gulch. Um, and we got into giving it kind of a general description. We talked about kind of what the deal between the people there or the community there and the Bloodgood Sisters is. Specifically, that the Bloodgood Sisters were damming up the river to the north through this very arid desert-like region, and constricting the water supply to Sky Song Gulch, um, and doing so without the knowledge of the citizens of Skysong. And then, desperate to kind of avoid this impending drought, the people of Skysong made a deal with the Bloodgood Sisters, and for ensuring the town's water supply for a period of X number of years, TK years. You'll know what we've put here, um, as in to come. We'll figure that out later as we kind of uh, work our way through this adventure. But they would recover the last known reserve of cold iron and deliver it to the hags as payment. So essentially, the hags created a problem and then offered a solution, like every good snake oil salesman in the world, and are now trying to reap the benefits of that. It's important for us to know this when we're building this adventure for a couple reasons. One, it's just always good to know what is at stake, but also, uh, since part of this adventure, specifically when we get to the big bad or the climax of our adventure, is going to center around the players having to make a choice, the characters having to decide whether to just kind of go along with the village's plan or to rise up against these hags. Um, Knowing that there was a deception here that they might be able to, one, discover for themselves, and two, use to their advantage in trying to sway the villagers to their line of thinking, is useful. Um, we have not really dug into using that yet, but it's good to know that we have it here. We did a little bit of descriptive details about Sky Song Gulch, um, and summarized it as it's a town built vertically into the walls of a narrow canyon, carved through painted rock sandstone by a slow moving river. The buildings themselves are dug into the stone with overhanging porches connected by a carved road and wooden boardwalk. The two sides of the canyon are connected by rope bridges that crisscross several places on each level. And so we've kind of this web of sentient civilization in this deserty wasteland kind of area. Um, and so we've got all those kind of details. We we could at this point kind of try to dig into the social and political structure, but to be honest with you, I don't know that that's particularly relevant just yet. Um, there will need to be some kind of social hierarchy, or some sort of political hierarchy that we'll have to build in this, a sense of government, when it comes time to fleshing out our big bad encounter. Because we're going to need there to be NPCs that the players can try to convince, to try to win over to their side, which actually lends a, now that I kind of think about it, lends makes the suggestion that this can't be an autocracy, a monarchy. It can't be a government where there's just one head official that has absolute power. It probably needs to be something more along more along the lines of a council, perhaps with the chairman position, because we have that comment about we need a community leader, right? Like somebody who's the quest giver for this, who's the patron, of this adventure, the person that the players interact with when they're initially given this objective. Um, and so there needs to be a lead person, but we don't want convincing the town to come down to a single die roll. Because how dissatisfying is that when the party goes, we're going to convince the village to fight back, and we've just got to go convince the the mayor. And you go in and you get that nat one on your persuasion check, and now it's like, well, okay, I guess the mayor is it's a hard no. So I guess the village isn't convinced. But if we make it kind of a council, it can be a series of checks, which one I think adds a little drama to it, and two adds a few more avenues of approach. Um, and it suggests some NPCs that we'll need to build out later. Um, so I guess as long as we're thinking about that here real quick, why don't we, let's see here. Let's make them a republic. Um, government type. Let's say republic, because we'll say that a republic is voted representatives. Representatives have been elected in some fashion. Um, so we don't have to define how they're elected or who they represent just yet. Um, although that gives us some levers to use later on, especially when we're fleshing out these characters. Because if they're beholden, if each representative of the council is beholden to a particular group of people to maintain their power, whether that's a guild or a subset of the community, then that gives the players some angles to approach their approach this person with to manipulate them into making the decision that the characters want them to make. But we can come back to the details on that. But what we will write here is that the let's see here. Let's say Sky Song Gulch is ruled by a council. We'll say an elected council. Council helps if I spell correctly. Sky Song Gulch ruled by an elected council and headed by let's see, a chairman or executive officer. Cool. Yeah, by chairman. Okay, so that's really all we need to know for that at the moment. We don't need to build out a legal system at this time because, well, frankly, we're not really worried about the characters or coming here to break laws. If this is more of like a heist adventure, or if we were going to be, if the adventure was going to take place entirely within this town, building out the legal system would be useful to help us, judge what would happen to characters if they get caught breaking the law. Like an example of that is like in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which takes place all inside Waterdeep. If there's a fight in the street, if the characters end up on a fight, a brawl in the streets, there could be legal ramifications. And knowing what those are by building out a legal system is useful in that case. But we're not too worried about that here because even though there could come to a situation where there's combat in the streets of Skysong Gulch, it's not going to be. It's more likely to be the village against the hags as opposed to just random brawling. So We don't need to worry about that just yet, but we'll leave a placeholder here in case it becomes important as the adventure evolves. Key locations, we can build out a few of those uh, as we work through the adventure later. Um, I will say that in towns, I keep the key locations pretty light, unless again the adventure is going to be in the town and there's a reason for to build out a particular location. That being said, I will usually include an inn slash tavern of some kind because players are likely to want to rest, get meals, that kind of stuff. Um, I will include a general store of some kind, and frequently I will divide up like sort of general goods, which is like adventuring equipment um, and rations and all that kind of stuff, uh, separate from weapons and armor. And so I'll kind of split those out into two separate stores. They got to go somewhere specific for weapons and armor, and I'll usually put that in town as well, unless it's a really like tiny town, and then that may get lumped into one spot. But I really only put in the few places um, that the characters are likely to go seeking out in a town. I don't worry about building out everything else, and just kind of trust that if there's something specific they end up looking for, I can kind of make that up on the fly. That being said, if you're writing for your adventuring party and you have, say a wizard who's constantly going, well, is there a bookstore in town? Is there a place I can buy spell scrolls? Knowing the answer to that question is useful in that situation. Um, so if you want that kind of stuff available, then build that in. But again, really focus on places that your characters are most likely to go. Don't worry about mapping out the fountains in the park district or something like that, unless that's important in the adventure. Um, in this case, since we're likely to gonna have some folks on our council that our characters are going to want to talk to privately at some point, we will probably build out locations to find each of them here as we get into that the kind of big bad section or the climax here. Um, but to be completely honest, that's not where my head is at today. So that's not what we're going to focus on. Instead, I think we're going to go back to the Glacial Mine, which is going to need a real name at some point. Um, so maybe we'll see if we can name that before the end of the session. Um, but in reviewing this before our live stream here, a couple things kind of jumped out at me that I wanna work on today. I want to chew on today. Now I want to say that I do not make any changes to this outside of the live stream, right? Like, so because I want you to see all of the pieces and parts and all of the thoughts that go into this kind of stuff. Um, Nothing is more frustrating to me than when you're watching a kind of how-to video and they go, okay, step one, turn bolt A, step two, some magic happens, and step three, ta-da, you're done. Like that frustrates me to no ends. I don't want to do that to you. But I do read through this before we get on the live stream to kind of get my brain moving into the right headspace. Um, and one thing that jumped out at me is that we really do have two distinct levels in this glacial mine slash fortress. Um, we have our fortress level, which has things like the entrance, the gatehouse, great hall, dining hall, garrison, noble chambers. It'll have kitchens, that kind of stuff. Some of that's been tacked onto the bottom here, and we'll have to kind of take that up. Same with library, treasury, privy, probably infirmaries up there. Although there might be one down in the mines, who knows? But then we have kind of this mine level, where fortress, then mines, and it occurs to me that we really, I think, need an atmosphere change here. I was walking around this morning downtown and turned a corner where we went from this um, very kind of, I describe it as kind of residential section of town. You turn this corner and you get this very stark atmosphere shift. And that got me thinking that we really do need that kind of hard line, I think, for this adventure, um, this this shift of kind of the lightness of the fortress up above, because we're getting the light coming in through, filtering in, diffuse but still detectable through the walls of the glacier. And then we get down into the mine. I think it needs to be darker. I think it needs to be more ominous, especially with these patches of infectious gas down there, which certainly need to creep up into the fortress level as well. I think, but I think there needs to be a real feeling of we're in danger here when you get down to the mine tunnels or to the mine level, especially since we're going to have ghouls hunting them throughout. And since the idea of the ghouls hunting them throughout the whole mine level, um, I think really adds something to that combat. It really uh, makes that a more present threat and challenge. It also means that we can kind of spread some of this out. It means we need a room that is like the ghoul's nest, where they, where do they hole up? Um, and then it also means that we need we need some shadows and twisting and turning points and that kind of stuff. So I think we need to talk about some of the atmosphere here. Um, and it also will influence this forge encounter, because if the forge is down on that mine level, and I really think it should be contextually, it also means that there is a threat of these ghouls attacking during this forging process if they haven't already been dealt with yet. So it adds a level of urgency and discomfort here, which I think is really good. There are moments in an adventure when you want to make your players a little uncomfortable. And I don't mean uncomfortable with the subject matter. I mean uncomfortable in the sense that they know that their characters are not in a safe spot. Um, you know, they themselves, the players, should always be in a safe place, but the characters are not in a safe spot. Um, and I think that needs to be made very, very clear from the moment we come down this mine slope shaft here, or the mine slope. I think it. I really, the more I think about it, I think it probably needs to be a mine shaft with like a rickety, slow hand crank elevator in there, like a wooden framed one with a big like wheel in the into either in the center of the wall that like you need a couple people to like crank to turn the chains to drag it upward. Um, yeah. Okay. So to do that, we because we've kind of written some of the atmospheric elements as um, we've written them as universal, but really what we've got written here really um, is more relevant to this top section. So I think we need to divide up our mine here a little bit. So let's say um, fortress level general features, and then we'll say fortress level key locations. Okay, and we'll just come down here and we'll do another heading 1, and we'll say mine level. Let's say mine level general features TBD, and then mine level key locations TBD. Okay. So we'll go and we'll fill that in a second here. But before we do that, let's kind of run through some of the stuff that's here. That's probably going to be up at the fortress level. Equipment store's going to be the other one. I think I'm going to move them up to the fortress level for the moment. But let's take equipment, pantry, and kitchen. So Control X. Yep. And let's come on up here and paste those in. Cool. And then let's also let's see the throne room, privy, treasury, library. Yeah, let's put those up in the fortress level as well. That being said, I think we probably need a privy down here as well. I mean, I'll be honest, you don't actually have to put privies into your adventure locations. Lots of things don't. I think it adds a little verisimilitude, and then, as I've mentioned before, I think it's just a fun place to either drop boons or horrifying eldritch terrors. Um, because that makes me giggle. And really, what is writing a D&D adventure if it's not to make myself giggle? Okay, so the infirmary, I think I like the infirmary down on the mine level. I think I want to keep it there for now because I like a little bit of the horror element that kind of leans, kind of you know, lends to this. Um, you know, we don't want this adventure to veer into the realm of medical horror, but there is something deeply ominous and disturbing about an abandoned hospital space, right? Um, and this could be a place for another kind of quickie encounter, or it could be a place that we use to build up the anticipation of an encounter, which is sometimes even more important than the encounter itself, and then kind of lead your players to the point where they're getting ready. They're certain they're going to encounter something in here. They're really built up for it, and then there's nothing to worry about. Um, in a section like this, where they're kind of being hunted by something, it is useful to create some false leads because it tells the players that it creates a level of uncertainty in the players because if every time we build up to there being some danger present, if there is a danger present, then they know it's coming. They can mentally get ready for it. But if sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not, and sometimes everything looks great and all of a sudden danger pops up, it keeps them off balance and it makes um, this sense of being hunted, in this particular section, I think a little more powerful. So let's leave that in there for the moment. There isn't a lot on the mine level, and that's okay. We might work. We might add another space. We probably need like a so we got ore processing. We probably want something like oop, I don't want to get rid of that. I just want to copy it because I don't want to reformat. Maybe something like crude or storage, a place they hack it out of the walls, right? And they, take it over to storage. It sits there until it can go to ore processing where, it's refined and the cold iron is extracted from the other mineral components around it. Um, because there are these veins of mineral elements through the ice walls here, this glacial mine, it would be a much darker place, which brings us back to really what started this, and that's our general features, what sets the atmosphere. So let's make things easy on ourselves and let's come up here. And these things are kind of universal. So let's continue to kind of divide this up for ourselves. I will frequently, as I go through this stuff I'm building, and I refine, I have ideas, I will shift things around to where they fit and they make sense, and divvy up and combine stuff just so that it starts to take shape for me. In a lot of ways, and this may sound silly, but I think of writing an adventure a lot of how you know, Michelangelo talked about sculpting, where the idea is that we're we're carving off pieces of an idea until we get down to the image that we want, right? So we're putting a lot on here in kind of a loosey goosey way, and then we're slowly carving off sections, moving things to other places, and refining and refining and refining until slowly it takes shape. Um, so to that end, let's just add a straight general features section. And this will be truly general features, things that are universal to the mine. And that's where we will put in things like, plague and infection, which I think needs to become its own section now. So we'll say those get pulled up here, and they get put there. And we can't forget to do something about the magic font here, because that is kind of why this thing exists. There needs to be some kind of magical element to that. And maybe we'll look at Tasha's for some inspiration in a little bit on that. We'll see. But anyway, so we got the fortress level. We kind of have this idea of the lighting and how that works here. We haven't really talked about doors and secret doors yet. I'll be honest, with doors, I generally tend to say, they're open unless there's a reason for them not to be. Or I should say they're unlocked unless there's a reason for them not to be. And then secret doors, I usually won't fill in until after I've done the map, because I'll want to kind of see how things lay out. But secret doors are something that I'm a firm believer that you should almost always have secret doors somewhere in an adventure, secret entrances, that kind of stuff, because they should never be vital. You should never have to find them. But players get so excited when they find them. They get so, they're so happy when they find a secret door and so excited that it's worth it almost every time. So let's just kind of take this section here. Define present throughout the fortress level, unless otherwise stated, and let's just copy that. We'll come down to our mine, and we will paste, and then we'll make our changes as needed. So let's say in the mine level, unless otherwise stated. We can. Okay, let's just get rid of that because it's going to be a. What are we doing here? Come on. TBD. There we go. Because we're going to start on our own here. Let's start with atmosphere. The air here, it should be cool. I think it should be not crisp, it should be moist. Cool, moist. I think there should be an odor to the air here, I think. Because I imagine in the fortress level, it's kind of light and bright with the sun coming in through the walls and these big kind of cathedral, ceilings. The way the light reflects and splits, and you get rainbows and effects, and very beautiful. And then we get into this mine shaft elevator, and kung, 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 it slowly descends into the darkness of the mine as the ice is obscured by the presence of the iron ore. And frankly, it's probably under the earth here too. This part probably doesn't stick out of the ground. This is probably, kind of the iceberg effect, right? Where the fortress level is just the tip of the iceberg that we can see, and then the mine is everything underneath. So it's surrounded by sand and dirt, and it's just grim and dark here. So it needs a smell. What would it smell like? Petrichor is too friendly. It's the smell of, dust after the rain, right? Um, Thank you, Doctor Who, for teaching me that word. But it needs a putrescence to it, I think. Um, because one, you've got the dead down here, and then you've got these patches of infectious gas, which should be more dense down here, I think. They should exist in the fortress level. They should pop up in places, but they should definitely be more dense down here. So the air is cool and moist. It carries an evasive kiss of putrescence. That, let's say not an invasive, let's just say it carries a kiss of putrescence that sticks in the nostrils. Cool. Okay. All right. So as long as let's talk about the lighting here. So this section of we need a name. We need a name for the glacial mine. So let's come up with a name. I'm at my breaking point now. Let's go to places and locations. Mining company names. That's not what we want. Let's see. Tavern names, temple names. Is there fortress names? Nope. What about castle names? Let's see castle names. Yeah. Because if there's a people living here, they're likely to give it a more powerful name than such and such mine. So let's see here. Let's see if anything kind of jumps out. Balzo Palace. Makes me think of Balto. The whole, sled dog I did ride deal up in Alaska years and years ago. Medicine to Gnome. Anyway, doesn't quite fit here. So saltwood. So let's think about where this is. This be something iconic about this. This is a glacial mine and citadel. It's in a wasteland. Let's see here. Let's think about ice. I think about glass with ice, glades, wasteland, sand, ruin. We don't have to call it a fortress either, because it might not be called by the name of the people who live there anymore. It might be called something more along the lines of what what the people who live in the region currently refer to it as. We can just call it the Berg instead of iceberg. The Berg. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that people might call it. Let's give it that. Let's use that as a working title right now. Let's use that as a working name. If we don't like it later, we can come back to it. The Berg. Okay. So we'll call it the Berg. Let's see here. The fortress. Sorry, that just caught my eye. We'll correct that there. Okay. So mine level. This section of the Berg is entirely underground. Thus, it does not have the lit open feel of the fortress above. Here rooms, let's say here chambers and passages are swallowed by let's say by utter utter darkness. I'll say utter darkness. This is just for us. It can be a little too on the nose. Utter darkness. Let's see here. Here, chambers and messages are swallowed by utter darkness. Unless otherwise stated in the text. Groovy. And it's going to want to comment there. Cool. All right. All right, sweet. So we got that. We'll get the doors and secret doors later. Let's talk about the mine shaft, because it's definitely a shaft now in my mind. Let's see here. Mine shaft is dominated. Should say is home to, or say is, let's back up here. Is the only access point between the fortress above, the mines below. A open frame, let's say a rickety open frame elevator let's see, allows transfer from one level to the other. The elevator is still functional, though creaks ominously. I'll get rid of the parentheses on that. Still functional, though it creaks ominously. Creaks ominously. To activate it, or I should say to move between levels, characters must make a we'll say a DC. We'll make it relatively easy. Let's say a DC 13 strength, athletics check in order to turn the overlarge hand crank that works the elevator elevator chain. Yeah, it helps if I can freaking spell today. All right. So this is, I think, the first part where we've actually specified a skill check or a save so far, and what we've really been working on. And when it comes to stuff like this, I want to point out that I don't always require checks or saves. In fact, a lot of stuff you can, you know, a lot of stuff there shouldn't be a check for, right? A lot of stuff should just the character should just be able to do. Um, and in most cases, I would say they should just be able to operate the elevator and move up and down between the levels, and you just kind of narrate, the strain it takes to turn the crank, and as the rusty chain, creaks and and whines, lifting the elevator up and down the passage there. Um, but I foresee an opportunity here, and that is made specifically by the ghouls on this level, right? So the characters are being hunted down here. I could see a situation where they um, have not been able to kill the ghouls, but rather have been have had this series of guerrilla attacks, and they know that continue to be in danger, and they find the first key, and they're hunting around. They finally find the second key, and they decide that instead of trying to worry about the ghouls, they're just going to get out of here, right? And so they make a run for the mine shaft, and and the ghouls, appear and give chase, and they get on onto the elevator, and now they've got to make this check, and all of a sudden we have this very tense moment of, will the person who's trying to turn the crank get it to work? And the odds are probably with a DC 13, but it adds a level of uncertainty. And you can effectively let the characters, let the players roll, you know, again, again and again and again. So effectively, like, somebody can try every turn, as the ghouls, engage them, and other people have to hold them back. And so it just adds a little bit of a speed bump, that gives your players just a touch of pause here. And that's the only reason why I would include it here, is because of this sense of being hunted by the ghouls down here. Now, that being said, we may end up. I said 3 ghouls was a hard to deadly encounter, so we probably won't beef that up. That's probably good to go here. But we may, rewrite this to talk kind of about the ghouls hunting through the tunnels here. We might move some of the discussion of the ghouls themselves somewhere else, where the ghouls have kind of made their nest. Maybe not. Maybe there'll be other ghouls there that kind of fill in this pack of 3 in case there's in case the players manage to kill one of them, and so it doesn't slowly reduce numbers. Or maybe that's okay for them to do that. We'll have to balance that. In my brain, I can kind of kick around the idea of there being 5 ghouls total down here, and that effectively you're keeping 2 in reserve. Like, 2 are always kind of in the nest. And so unless the players go and kick that up and get them out of the fray, they really only come back into action when uh, when the players are already engaged and perhaps damaged or killed one of the other ghouls, so that we maintain a cohort of 3 ghouls for a while, but it doesn't eliminate the benefit of the players fighting them, right? Because they can eliminate the ghouls entirely. It's still possible to do that. So their choice there, has consequences. The decisions they make matter to that regard, but we maintain that level of pressure, that level of danger, just a little bit longer. If that makes any sense. I'm not sure it does, but we'll work on that some more as we go. I kind of like the idea of the ghouls nesting in, I'd say, in the infirmary, but again, that false lead is always kind of nice there. Maybe they're in the miners' mess hall. Let's see here. Let's say ghoul nest, question mark, to other ghouls. Roost here and join hunt as needed to increase difficulty and danger. So just a couple in reserve. Again, I like to make challenges. I'd like to err on the side of a little too hard because it's always easier to dial them down. It's always easier to have somebody make a mistake or take a less than perfect tactic, um, or award a character advantage for a good decision, than it is to try to kind of beef up an encounter that's not posing the threat that you hoped that it would. Cool. So we'll work on that a little bit. In the meantime, let's add a little bit of meat to our forge encounter here. So to that end, I like the idea of this being a skill challenge kind of deal that may come with some, that may involve possession by the ghost herself. Forge master here, the forge mistress, master. We'll use master as a gender neutral term. Okay. So let's take a look at the possession ability from ghosts. Let's refresh our memory on that and just kind of see how that might impact this. Okay, possession. One humanoid that the ghost can see within 5 feet of it must succeed on a DC 13 charisma saving throw or be possessed by the ghost. The ghost then disappears, and the target is incapacitated and loses control of its body. The ghost now controls the body but doesn't deprive the target of awareness. The ghost can't be targeted by any attack, spell, or other effect except ones that turn undead, and it retains its alignment, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and immunity to being charmed and frightened. Otherwise, it uses the possessed target's statistics but doesn't gain access to the target's knowledge, class features, or proficiencies. Okay. The possession lasts until the body drops to 0 hit points. Okay, cool. All right. So that actually works out pretty well because we can have a ghost we could give them smithing tool proficiencies, right? And so that can overcome the obstacle of perhaps there's somebody in this adventure that doesn't have smithing tool proficiencies. Maybe nobody in the party has got that. They now have the option of being possessed by this ghost, which in this sort of ominous setting could feel like a real danger. Now, we as the DM know that it's not, that this is a good aligned ghost, and isn't going to be a problem, but it can feel like a sketchy choice. So I like the idea of potentially. All right, fine. We'll change the wording on that. Potentially needing the possession to make this work. But that still means that we've got to get through the skill challenge. And so let's see what that skill challenge might be. Let's see here. Let's see, skill challenge checks. So there's a couple ways to run skill challenges. You can run them as a series of checks the players have to succeed on. The characters have to succeed on each one. You can run them as a, they've got to succeed on 4 checks before they fail on 3 of them or something like that. I for something like this, I kind of like that approach. It's best. The only thing that we really want to consider here is the possibility of failure, right? So we want to make this challenging enough that there really is a risk of failure. The characters might not succeed on the skill challenge, even if possessed by the Forge Master herself. However, if they do fail the checks and they fail to create the cold iron armor up to the standards of this ghost, they still need to be able to get the key, right? And that might involve fighting or turning this ghost. And we can't count on somebody in the group having turn undead, since that's a very specific class ability. And a ghost is a powerful baddie comparatively. And we're talking 17 points of damage around potentially. And then there's this being frightened. That's this is a pretty serious. This is a pretty serious baddie if it comes to a fight. So we want to make sure that we're thinking of other ways that this can be solved. So either a boon somewhere that the characters might be able to get to help them overcome the ghost if they need to fight, or some other way that they can attempt to get this key, perhaps via stealth. Okay, that might be a simple one. The passive perception of the ghost is not terribly high. Um, so, hmm, okay. So stealth might be the other option there. So we might have to create a situation by which the key can also be stolen. Um, so, hmm, okay. So one problem at a time here. So let's hit some skill checks. We're coming up on time here, so let's count this out. So let's see. We're level third. Characters. We want these to be difficult, but not, impossible. I'm tempted to say that maybe these are some DC 15 checks. For skill challenge, we probably want to define the tool set. So it would probably be a DC 15, DC 15 check with, I'll say Smith tools. Question is, what ability score do we want to lean in on that with? Probably a couple of them, right? We think about the process of, there's probably some strength in there. There's probably some intelligence that's needed. Maybe some quick action. Is there, dealing with the heated material? You got to heat up the forge. This is probably going to require a little more thought. We're probably going to need to think through the actual actions of forging in rough terms. Just, we don't need to become experts in blacksmithing, but some idea of the steps so that we can narrate them better and that the skill checks can seem a little more realistic to that. So maybe next time we'll let's make a note. Maybe next time we'll take a look at kind of what are the steps of working a forge. Research steps for forging metal objects. Yeah, again, we don't need to become super duper experts, but having a passing understanding of it will help us sculpt this a little bit better. I do want to say, though, that if we are going to allow the idea that the key might the characters might be able to steal the key as an option, which I think is reasonable and valid and something they might actually try to do. But we don't want that necessarily to be just the default, right? We don't want them to approach the room and go, oh, well, there's the key right over there. We'll just, I'll just sneak in and steal it and we'll be good. We want them to at least have some interaction with the ghost here, because otherwise the room kind of loses its coolness. It kind of loses its challenge. And so I think that perhaps maybe the key is hidden initially, like it's not just sitting out like it's in something, and searching the room by stealth might be difficult, but they may discover the location of the key by interacting with the ghost and by engaging with this skill challenge. So let's make a note of that here. So the key is hidden in a box or container within the forge room, which is not immediately, we'll say, its location is not immediately apparent, but becomes known while attempting to help Forge Master finish her armor. Okay. Cool. All right, so that gives us a backup, us a backup plan, a way that the story can still move forward, even if the the skill challenge has failed, which is important. We really want to make sure that we don't build ourselves into a corner here, right? Where we don't end up in a place where there's a very specific thing the characters must do to complete an objective, and that they can't move forward, the story can't move forward unless they do that very specific thing. It's okay to have specific things that are required, but there has to be ways for the story to move forward in case they fail to do those specific things. Otherwise, it becomes very railroady, and we definitely don't want that. So the idea of theft is a possibility there. Yay, plan for theft. Okay. Cool. All right. So we've got some skill challenge notes there. We got the ore processing, the mine tunnels. Cool something throughout the mine level. Let's see here. Group. As one ghoul becomes injured or perishes, pack is reinforced by one or more of the ghouls in the Miner's Nest Hall. Let's see here, in area, whatever, Miner's Mess Hall. Cool. Yeah, so again, this comes back to that railroading thing, right? Where we want, when it comes to these ghouls that are hunting the characters through this level, we want that to be a persistent challenge and a danger, but we don't want killing off ghouls to be meaningless, right? So there should be. So I like the idea of there being more than just the three that initially kind of threaten the players or threaten the characters, but there aren't so many that that your characters aren't going to see any change in the strength if they really do double down and try to hunt down these ghouls, back, or set traps for these ghouls, or really take some put some tactical thought into eliminating this threat. If they do that kind of thing, we really want to reward them. Anytime your players take proactive action that really is, that they think through it, they make a plan, they execute, you want to reward that in some way, even if ultimately the action is unsuccessful. It should open up other avenues for them if it doesn't unlock that initial one. So I think we're getting some really nice legs here. There's a lot in the fortress level that we'll fill out here. Stuff that could be, some rooms that could be empty. We want to leave some rooms empty. We want to put some treasure in here, but we'll do that last. Obviously, there'll be some stuff in the treasury. Or maybe not. Maybe it's already been looted. Who knows? But we also will pepper in some more minor encounters through here. Some things that are not those hard or deadly, but are some easy to medium encounters. With some more minor undead, since kind of our theme here. Maybe zombies. I like zombies. Zombies are fun. You whack them, and they don't always go down, which is nice. In D&D, it's a fun little surprise. So yeah, so I think that's probably where we're going to put a pin in this for today. And we will be back next week for part 9, where we'll continue this. So, again, I'm Archie Kurt. Thank you guys so much for joining me during this. It's been so much fun to kind of do this live for you all. And for all of those of you who are watching and have left such wonderful comments, I really do appreciate that. If you have enjoyed this video or are enjoying my channel, please like and subscribe. It's the best way to support me and to make sure I can do more of this. And let me know that you want me to do more of this kind of stuff. And with that, yeah, thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Hope you have a great day.